यया तु धर्मकामार्थान् धृत्या धारयते अर्जुन प्रसंगेन फलाकांक्षी धृतिः सा पार्थराजसी यया स्वप्नं शोकं भयं विषादं मदमेव च स्वप्नं शोकं भयं विषादं मदमेव च न विमुञ्चति दुर्मेधा धृतिः सा पार्थ तामसी धृतिः सा पार्थ राजसी धृतिः सा पार्थ तामसी. We are about to understand the modes of dhriti influenced by rajas and tamas. For any successful action, there are two important ingredients. One is buddhi, the other is dhriti. Buddhi is intelligence. Dhriti is determination. Therefore, Krishna takes up both buddhi and dhriti and explains to us in detail the role played by buddhi, intelligence, and dhriti, determination, in every action. While intelligence is necessary to analyze, discriminate, evaluate, make choices, make decisions, it is with determination that we can persevere with the choice that we make and complete the action. Powered by our contemplation, powered by the attention that we give to our thoughts, the thought then transforms into a desire. Desire then transforms into intention, and intention manifests as action. The attention that we give to our thought ensures that a desire is born out of that attention, and it is that desire which transforms into intention, which manifests as action. Therefore, whenever we do an action and the action turns out to be unhealthy or destructive, we may wonder and ask, how did this happen? How did I end up doing this unhealthy action? Now, in order to understand why we ended up doing an unhealthy action or a destructive action, we'll have to go back to the root of the action, where all it began. And we see every action begins with a thought. It is with the choice of the thought that everything else happens. Depending on the thought that we choose, we end up doing constructive or destructive actions. So therefore, choosing the right thoughts becomes a prerequisite for doing right actions. Now, if we have to choose the right thoughts, the prerequisite is to know that we are not our thoughts. Until and unless we do not recognize that we are not our thoughts, we cannot choose our thoughts. We need to acknowledge, recognize, and be aware that I am different from my thought. We need to be aware that we are at the core, we are souls. And the soul has a subtle body and a gross body. The subtle body comprises of the manas and the buddhi. And it is in the subtle body that the thoughts are generated. It is the manas which is the generator of thoughts, and it is the buddhi which is the evaluator of thoughts. And it is very important for us to recognize this, that we have the ability to evaluate and choose our thoughts. The mind is always full of thoughts. The mind is always full of thoughts, but unfortunately we are not always thoughtful. The mind being full of thoughts and we being thoughtful, there is a huge difference. When I am thoughtful means my thinking is productive, my thinking is purposeful. When the mind is full of thoughts, the thinking is chaotic, not purposeful, very unproductive. Because the nature of thoughts in the mind is random. It is not linear. It is not logical. If we actually witness our own thought patterns, we will find that there is no logic to the thoughts that come into our mind. At any given point in time, any kind of thoughts can pop up in our mind. There is no specific logic or a pattern to the way thoughts can unfold in our mind. They are so very random, so very messy, so very disorganized. So therefore, to be thoughtful requires some order. An order that can be only determined through a purpose. Now, to understand this, we can take the analogy of a storeroom. Now, if a storeroom is full of books, haphazard, chaotic, everything in a mess, and if I am searching for a specific topic from a specific book and I walk into the storeroom, just by looking at the mess, I will be exhausted. Even before I can even start looking at the book and the specific page from which I want to refer. On the other hand, a library which is well organized, systematically stored, well sorted, and when I go in to refer to that page from a book, I am energized. Now, both the storeroom and the library are full of books. The fullness is the same, but the way the fullness impacts me is so very different. The storeroom, which is in a mess, where the books are in a mess, heaps of mess, when I look at it, it completely exhausts me even before I know that it's going to take enormous amount of time for me to bring some order, organize, eventually to reach out to that book which can really help me. On the other hand, the library is so very inviting, so energizing, makes it easy for me to go to that page in that book that I want reference from. A mind full of thoughts is like that messy storeroom where the books are all haphazard. Whereas a thoughtful mind is like this organized, sorted, systematized library, which is very energizing. That is why dhriti, determination, becomes so very important. It is only with dhriti that we can bring focus to our identity and to our purpose. If we cannot bring focus to our true identity, to our true purpose, we cannot choose the right thoughts. Because if we have a problem with our identity, and if our purpose is not clear, then we will end up choosing wrong thoughts all the time. Only with the right purpose and with the awareness of our true identity, the true identity as the Jivatma and purpose being harmony with the Paramatma, alignment with the Paramatma, then in the knowledge of the identity and the purpose, we will end up prioritizing the right thoughts. And when we bring our focus on the right thoughts, which can help us progress towards our purpose, ignoring unwanted thoughts becomes easy, becomes effortless. So the role that dhriti plays in doing right actions is so very crucial. Many times we are rightfully concerned that we possibly do not have determination. Many times we end up taking resolutions and then we fail. We repeatedly fail. We are attached to certain things and we want to somehow get freedom from those attachments, and we make resolution and we fail. And we start moaning, we start complaining that after all, this determination is only for few gifted people and not for us. In reality, determination is not magic, it's not a mystic power. All of us have enormous amounts of determination. All of us have determination in very individual. We have determination. We do not need to go cultivating determination. If we look at our own attachments, we are all strongly attached to many things. Our attachment, when at one level, reflects on our lack of determination, but another level, our attachment also reflects the underlying capacity for determination. The very fact that we are attached to something means we are capable of holding on to something with determination. The very fact that we are attached to something means we have the capability to hold on to something, not give up. So underlying every attachment is our capacity for determination. So there is no dearth of capacity for determination. We all have enough capacity for determination. The only question is whether our determination is directed properly. The question is, what is the direction of our determination? So when we analyze all our attachments, it becomes clear that we do have determination, but unfortunately our determination is not directed properly. Misdirected determination is rajasic in nature, while well-directed determination is sattvic in nature, which we have seen. Misdirected determination is rajasic in nature. Ill-directed determination is tamasic in nature. Yayatu dharmakamarthan dhritya dharayate Arjuna. He says, one who is prasangena, he says, prasangena, intense attachment, phalakankshi, one who is focused on the results, on the fruits of every action. Tamasic rajas, Krishna defines as that, the rajasic dhriti, Krishna defines as that dhriti which ensures that our focus is on the result of our action all the time. We are determined to get results. Rajasic dhriti is all about massive focus on the reward of the action. Unwavering, unflinching determination to somehow achieve the result. He says, Yayatu dharma kamarthan. That dhriti, that determination which holds one to dharma, kama and artha. Dharma is the work that we do, the duty that we perform. Kama, sensual pleasures, fulfillment of our sensual desires. Artha, wealth, prosperity, riches. So that dhriti, that determination by which one holds on to actions that are done for the sake of worldly pleasures, for the sake of worldly riches, that determination, Krishna says, is rajasic in nature. Vritissapartha rajasi. Therefore, rajasic determination is that determination which helps one achieve worldly things, fulfill worldly desires. Now, whenever we make resolutions, we normally ask 3 questions. Question number 1, what is the prize that we get? When we resolve, the resolution is to get some reward. So what is the prize? That's the question number 1. Question number 2 is, what is the price? Question number 1 is, what is the prize? ZE. Question number 2 is, what is the price? What is the price that I have to pay in order to get this prize? If I have to lose weight, the price is loss of weight. The price is I have to avoid certain types of food. So there is a price that I need to make in order to get the price. So question number 1 is, what is the price? Question number 2 is, what is the price that I pay? Question number 3 is the price greater than the price? Only if the price is greater than the price, then I am determined to complete the resolution. If I resolve that I will lose 20 kgs in the next 2 months, that's my resolution. That's the price is very clear. The price that I need to make is I have to stop eating 3 times. And there is a conflict here. If I am pulled towards my pleasure of eating, then I will end up failing in my resolution, because the price is greater than the price. Only when I will be determined to pursue and persist and complete my resolution, when that price motivates me throughout my pursuit. Therefore, when the prize is eternal happiness, when the prize is eternal happiness, and the price that I have to pay for that is to renounce worldly pleasures, and I recognize and acknowledge, because of my sattvika jnana, the prize of eternal happiness, then my dhriti is sattvika in nature. Similarly, if the prize is for a worldly achievement, it could be power, position, possession, and the price that I need to make is to give up lesser important worldly desires. It is fine. If I have to achieve something, I have to sacrifice some sleep. I have to possibly minimize the time I spend on eating. Possibly I have to watch TV lesser number of hours if I have to make more money. I have to make more money, very clear. I have a goal. Within the next one year, I need to make so much amount of money. My bank balance has to grow 10 times. So I need to wake up early. I need to rush to the office. I need to work 12 hours, right? And I need to compromise on my eating hours. I work hard. Now, the price is definitely greater than the price that I'm paying, and therefore I have a very strong dhriti, strong determination to achieve the prize, that is rajasic dhriti. Because that prize that I am after is worldly in nature, worldly attainment. So Krishna says that dhriti, which is the enabler for all worldly achievements. Now Krishna is also very clear. He says dharma, kama, artha. Not just kama and artha. So therefore rajasic dhriti is not getting our focus on doing sinful actions. Still the actions are within the confines, within the framework of dharma. But they are only worldly in nature. any worldly achievement, power, position, possession, as long as it is abiding by dharma, then that dhriti is rajasic in nature. Now, obviously, rajasic dhriti is commendable. A sportsman who is determined to get an Olympic gold medal, commendable dhriti. Somebody who is determined to make $1 million, commendable dhriti. So, rajasic dhriti per se need not be undesirable, but the problem is when the prize is only remains worldly all the time, then unfortunately one is settling for the infinitesimal and ignoring the infinite. By settling for worldly achievements, one ignores that attainment of the world maker is our priority and not achievements in this world. So therefore, rajasic dhriti can bring worldly progress, but it stops there. It does not help in fulfilling the true purpose of our life. Now, immediately we can ask this question. One may ask this question. Everything is Krishna's will. So therefore, if one is chasing worldly goals, that also should be Krishna's will. Now, if one is only chasing one is chasing worldly goals, and in that process remains in samsara. If one is only chasing worldly goals and not really aspiring for moksha, there are many people. Majority of the people possibly fall in that category, where possibly there is no contemplation on moksha. The focus is on doing well in this life, doing good in this life, making money, being comfortable, amassing wealth. Now, one can say, how can one be, if everything is as per Krishna's will, this also has to be as Krishna's will. So, not aspiring for moksha is not the person's problem, is Krishna's problem. Because everything is as per Krishna's will. So Krishna declares in the Gita, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyaseja characharam hetunanena kauntena jagat viparivartate. He makes it very clear. He says, Maya adhyakshena prakriti. It is his adhyaksha, which means he supervises. Yes, everything is as per his will, but he is also given each one of us our own will. Each one of us our own will. Now, this is what is very important for us to understand. We have discussed this repeatedly, but Krishna uses the word adhyakshena. He supervises. So everything runs under his supervision. Every action that we do is under his supervision, but need not be as per his intention. Every action is done under his supervision, but need not be as per his intention. Which means Krishna gives us free will, and he does not control how we use our will. He does not control how we use our will. However, he controls how much we use our will. This is the difference, subtle difference we need to understand. He does not control how we use our will, but he controls how much we use our will. Freedom has its own limits. There is nothing called unlimited freedom. Freedom comes with limitations, with boundaries. We are free to drive to where we want. Yes, we have freedom. Government gives freedom. The same government which gives us freedom to drive also puts limits. On this road, you cannot drive beyond 120. On this road, you cannot drive beyond 80. Yes, I have freedom to drive, but that freedom also has limitations. There are roads that I cannot take. I have limitations. So any freedom comes with limitations. So similarly, free will, we have free will. How we use our free will is up to us. How much we can use is governed by Krishna. And how does he govern it? Through our own karma. Through our own karma, he governs the scope of our free will. It is the scope of our free will which determines how much we use our free will. So therefore, when somebody does something wrong, it is not doing Krishna's will, it is doing their own will, allowed by Krishna, but within the scope of their own karma. Misdirected determination is therefore rajasic in nature. When the direction is right and our will is aligned with Krishna, obviously then right actions happen effortlessly. But when our determination is misdirected, we end up doing actions which are always worldly in nature. And the focus is always on worldly attainment, worldly prosperity. Kama and Artha, even if they are governed by Dharma, we stop short of only these three Purusharthas. The main Purushartha of life, which is Moksha, is completely ignored. After all, free will is given only for one reason. That one reason being mukshatva. When one does not exercise free will to cultivate mukshatva, then one misuses one's free will. Then the dhriti becomes rajasic in nature or tamasic in nature. When the purpose is given importance over pleasure, when I subordinate pleasure to my purpose, then my dhriti is sattvika in nature. When I subordinate my pleasures to my purpose, the higher purpose, then it is sattvika in nature. On the other hand, when I subordinate my purpose to my pleasures, then the dhriti becomes tamasic in nature. Because there is always a tug of war going on internally. Inside us, there is a constant tug of war between pleasures and my purpose. And the purpose can be worldly or spiritual. Doesn't matter. The tug of war is there between any purpose that is worthwhile. So that is why even rajasic purpose, even achieving something good and great which is worldly, also is in tug of war with my pleasures. Because I have to sacrifice some pleasures even if I have to achieve something worldly. I cannot say I will sleep 10 hours, 12 hours every day and still I have to make money, still I have to become prosperous. Working hard to earn money means sacrificing some pleasures. So this tug of war between pleasure and purpose is there at every level. Tug of war between my bodily pleasures and my worldly purpose, and tug of war between my bodily pleasures and my spiritual purpose, my true purpose, attainment of Krishna. Now, when the pleasures are subordinated to the ultimate purpose, then my dhriti is sattvic in nature. When the pleasures take over and my purpose is subordinated to my pleasures, then the dhriti becomes tamasic in nature. And how this happens? When the purpose is not strengthened, it is not illumined with Shastra Jnana, then the purpose becomes perverted, distorted. Then automatically pleasures take over. This is exactly what tamasic jnana does. When Shastra Jnana does not illumine buddhi, then the purpose becomes distorted. It's like somebody saying, the purpose of my life is to become the king of this jungle. The king of the jungle is the purpose of a lion. We are human beings, not animals. In the jungle of life, which is infested with wild animals and beasts, the purpose cannot be becoming the king of this jungle of samsara. If we want to be king of the jungle of samsara, we will remain in samsara. The purpose of life is to rise above our animalistic inclinations and the purpose is to escape the cycle of births and deaths. But that purpose becomes clear only with the illumination of Shastra Jnana. Without Shastra Jnana, the purpose is not illumined. One thinks the summum bonum of life is pleasures in this very world. One does not even ask fundamental questions as to why am I here? What am I doing now? What is the meaning of this life? The focus on the meaning of life, the focus on what is the true mission of life, the focus doesn't come until and unless the Shastra Jnana illumines the purpose. So, tamasic dhriti is when the purpose is subordinated to our pleasures. That is why Krishna says, Yaya Swapnam. He starts with Swapnam. Bhayam, Shokam, Vishadam, Madamevacha. No, these are all negative thought patterns of the mind. Navimunchati Durmedha. Durmedha. One who has a distorted purpose, distorted intelligence, perverted intelligence, topsy-turvy. One who has no idea of what moksha is, no idea beyond this materialistic world. One who is almost animalistic. Durmedha. Navimunchati. Navimunchati means holding on forever without really giving up. Holding on to what? Krishna says, he gives a nice list. Holding very strongly with all determination. Holding on to, he says, holding on to Swapnam. Holding on to Bhayam. Holding on to Shokam. Holding on to Vishadam. Holding on to Madam. Swapnam. Swapnam, two things. One is Swapna, daydreaming. The other is sleeping. Both. Holding on to daydreaming and sleeping. Holding on to Bhayam, fear. Holding on to Shoka, grief, lamentation. Holding on to Vishadam. Shoka, Vishadam. There is a subtle difference. Shoka is grief, lamentation. Vishadam is persevering with grief and lamentation and add doses of hopelessness on top. That is Vishada. Continuing to grieve, continuing to be gloomy, morose, despondent, with a lack of hope, with a lack of hope. That is Vishada. Madam again, two things. Pride, inebriation, intoxication. Both are Madam. Holding on. That dhriti, that determination by which one holds on to all the negative thought patterns in the mind, that dhriti, hey Arjuna, is tamasic in nature, Krishna says. Now, whenever we start any action, now what normally happens is when we start an action, we have to exert ourselves, and it is quite natural that we will need some rest. The body will need some rest. The mind will need some rest. The need for rest, the danger is, can quickly translate into the need for sleep, which can translate into laziness and procrastination. If we are not watchful, the need for genuine rest can easily translate into laziness. When we are carrying out any action, the uncertainty of the future definitely will bring some fear in us. So we have seen Swapnam, Bhayam are natural when we get into doing any action. And if we face any problem, any challenge, then it is also natural for Shoka to also come in. And if we repeatedly fail, it is also natural for Vishada. once in a while, if something good happens and if there is a temporary success, there is a great chance for us feeling high mentally, pride, inebriation of success. So, swapna, bhaya, shoka, vishada, mada are natural in terms, because these can come whether we like them or not. But holding on to them is what is tamasic in nature. What happens is when tamas dominates, instead of holding on to the action, to the karma, one starts to hold on to one or all of these negative thought patterns. That is what is tamasic dhriti. Instead of holding on to the action itself, one starts to hold on to swapna. Instead of doing the action, because of tamasic dhriti, one starts to start dreaming, or one starts to sleep excessively. In that process, action is not completed. One starts to hold on to fears, and in that process, one action is not completed. One starts to hold on to grief. In that process, action is not completed. So, all holding on to this negative thought patterns in the mind is tamasic in nature, tamasic dhriti. Failure is natural. All of us fail. While failure is natural, and whenever we fail, the mind plays a role in it, but it may not play a major role. But the mind plays a major role when it comes to reacting to a failure. In the very process of failure, the mind has a role to play. May not be major, but in the process of reacting to a failure, the mind plays a major role. That is why we fail to learn from our failures. Failing will not ruin us, but failing to learn from our failures will ruin us. And why do we not learn from our failures? Because of the various negative thought patterns in the mind. Escapism. Escapism is all about trying to find ways and means of not actually doing the action, the right action. Dreaming of various other possibilities, and in that process, by holding on to everything other than the action itself. This is tamasic dhriti. Fearfulness of what others will think. We fail, but we fail to learn from the failure when we are fearful of what others will think, what others will say, and in that process, the focus is not on what the action and how to improve, but the focus is on the fear of what others, fear of the world. When we fail, yes, there is sadness, there is grief, but this will become, over a period of time, self-inflicted pain, where repeatedly we keep telling us that we are meant for failures. Shloka and Vishada, as the focus is on Shloka and hold on to Shloka and Vishada, we start telling ourselves that we are natural failures. And in that process, there is no scope to learn from our own failures. So therefore, tamasic dhriti, Krishna says, is so very destructive, because we hold on to everything other than what we should actually be focusing on. Swapna, holding on to swapna, not only daydreaming, so excess of sleep, holding on to bhaya. There is a big difference between fearing the future, fearing the failure in the future, and assuming failure. This is a big problem with tamasic dhriti. With tamasic dhriti, the focus is on assuming failure. Fearing failures is not all the time undesirable. Sometimes we will have to fear failure because that will help us not to take unwanted risks. Some amount of fear is required so that our risk taking is balanced. But assumption of failure is tamasic in nature. Assumption of failure, that even before we start, on something, tamasic dhriti will focus on all the reasons as to why we will fail. Multi-dimensional analysis. It is like fear of the future is like paying interest on a loan that we have not taken. Doing multi-dimensional analysis of all the wrongs that can happen in the future. It is important to know that the wrongs, the dangers of the future will not harm us in the present. The dangers of the future, so instead of fearing the dangers of the future, if we are fearless in the present, then we can be focused on the right course of action which will help us to endure the dangers even if they happen in the future. And instead of focusing on the wrongs, possible wrongs of the future, one can focus on what could be wrong now in the present. So this holding on to bhaya, holding on to fear, this tamasic dhriti is so very destructive. We all analyze our past by default. A good amount of time we spend analyzing our past. A great amount of time maybe. Because we only do two things. If we look at our thoughts, they can be categorized into only two categories. All the thoughts that are belonging to the past, where we are doing multi-dimensional analysis of the past, or the thoughts or expectation of the future. Now, analyzing the past definitely is not wrong. We definitely need to analyze the past to get the discrimination on what is right and wrong so that we can avoid the wrongs and do the right. So a purposeful learning from the past is needed. But when there is tamasic dhriti, what happens is not purposeful learning. It is pointless complaining, pointless resentment, pointless grief. We're always analyzing the past and capturing all the wrongs that have happened to us, and we are grieving. How come this only happens to me all the time? It looks like Krishna has chosen me specially. For every wrong that has to happen, he has chosen me. And how come only me? And this grief, this shoka becomes vishada, and it becomes never ending. So therefore, holding on to shoka is so very destructive because it prevents us learning from the past. Whereas we have to, ideally we should be learning from the past. Instead of learning from the past, we are only in a state of grief all the time. And holding on to vishada is even more dangerous. We get depressed. And then we get depressed because we got depressed. This is a process that keeps going on. Getting depressed once is fine. One day we get depressed. The next day, because we got depressed yesterday, we get depressed because we got depressed yesterday. And this cycle keeps going on. This is vishada. Persisting with our depression. Self-inflicting pain. Sometimes we take joy in that without really knowing. In that state of being in vishada, there is some thrill. And we want that tamasic dhriti ensures that the focus is always there, holding on to that vishada, so that we prevent anything nice, anything good happening. Even if something good knocks at the door, no, the door is closed. Because why? We are so focused in experiencing that vishada that we shut the door for anything good that can even sneak in. So Krishna says that dhriti which holds on to our vishada, not letting go, navimunchati, he says, not even giving up for a minute, tightly holding on. Instead of holding on to Krishna's feet, we hold on to all the unwanted things very tightly. Mada, pride. This is so very dangerous. Holding on to pride will ensure a very, very, very perilous ride. Because why? pride will ensure that we are always focused on getting what we want, even that means destruction to others. This is what tamasic dhriti does. It is so very destructive in nature. Harming others, hurting others becomes very, very easy for one does with tamasic dhriti. One harms, hurts, and doesn't even recognize that. One becomes animalistic. Just like how a lion pounces on a poor, deer and goes away and doesn't even think twice about it, because that's very natural. Similarly, with tamasic dhriti, one starts to hunt on everybody. Instead of praying, we say, right? Instead of praying, one starts praying with the E and not the A. Therefore, holding on to mother is also very destructive in nature. So thus, Krishna highlights the importance of sattvika dhriti. If the focus, if the determination is not sattvic in nature, one gets one's determination in the wrong direction. Misdirected determination, which is rajasic, or ill-directed determination, which is tamasic in nature, is destructive, takes us on the path of destruction, and one cannot hope for any exit out of the cycle of samsara. Now, having described the various facets of action, Krishna first described the various components, jnana, karma, karta. Then he took up buddhi and dhriti, and he gave us a detailed analysis of each of these facets of an action, categorized them according to the guna. He is now going to conclude this segment of the analysis of action, the art and science of successful action, by analyzing sukha, happiness, the outcome of all the actions that we do. That would be the concluding part of the segment, which we will take up in the coming sessions. Until then, let us contemplate on how not to cultivate rajasic dhriti or tamasic dhriti. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanastu.